Yes, we've got all kinds of family at the table today. Let's welcome back anchor Dale Stein, a celebrated photographer in the LGBTQ plus community. He's a director of music ministry at the famous Unity on the Bay and a moderator of Miami Gay List. So Dale, Stonewall Inn comes to the Stonewall Pride Parade and Festival as Grand Marshals this year. GFLGLCC hosts business event on Thursday, June 12th. Tell me what's happening out.
Well, on Thursday, June 12th, GFLGLCC will host From Protest to Progress, Business Empowerment Since Stonewall, a fireside chat featuring Stacy, Lentz, and Kurt Kelly, who are co-owners of the iconic Stonewall Inn, New York City, and 2025 Grand Marshals of Wilton Manors Stonewall Pride. Taking place from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Greater Fort Lauderdale Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce offices and Visitor Center, this free event will spotlight how LGBTQ leaders are driving inclusive innovation beyond performative policies. The evening will include refreshments from Jenn's Tea and Spice Shop. Attendees can expect inspiration, insight, and community. Stacy is the only lesbian leader associated with the historic Stonewall Inn, the site of the modern LGBTQ world civil rights movement in New York, on June 28, 1969. The Stonewall Inn sits on the square of the only National Park Service LGBTQ national monument. Stonewall Inn at Stonewall Pride is a very special experience in this year of great challenge for the queer community. Come see the owners of Stonewall Inn as Grand Marshals at Saturday Hotspots happening out Stonewall Pride Parade. Full details available at gogayfortlauderdale.com. Well, I think that is just so awesome that they are the Grand Marshals this year. I mean, it's just such a, I mean, has it happened before? I don't know. I don't think it has, right?
No.
So, I mean, how wonderful to bring New York really to Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
To the beginnings where, you know, all the rock throwing began and all the uprising began.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, right, we've all been told the stories about what happened back at the Stonewall Inn in New York in 1969, right? And that we all celebrate our prides because of those bricks or shot glasses, depending on who you ask, right, being thrown. And like to have that name.
The trans and the drag. And all the...
You know, none of this movement would have never started, okay? Again, like most things, right, led by black and brown women.
Yeah, of course.
Right? You know, black and brown trans women were the leaders of this whole thing, and they are even still today, right? So, it's just incredible to mesh those two things together, right? And, you know, I remember during COVID, right, sitting at this table doing a story about Stonewall Inn maybe having to close down.
Yeah, for real, yeah.
And I just remember how that was just like, oh my God, it was heartbreaking because that's our history. Like whenever we're fighting, that's what we go to. That's our LGBTQ history. Right. You know, so to have those two things tie in and have Stacy be a lesbian, you know, I mean, it's even cooler like this. And so like to have the GFLGCC have this little table talk kind of moment where you'll be able to ask questions like, how did you keep it together? You know, how do you feel being the trailblazer entity of all of us? I mean, the questions ask themselves. I can't wait.
And I lived in New York for many, many years. And, you know, when you go to the Stonewall, just being on that block, I always felt that sense of history of like, wow. You feel like you take a moment to just breathe it in. I didn't always do that. Yeah. But you really feel the power of that location.
Oh, it's so true because, you know, I grew up also New York Bay as well. And, you know, I think I took it for granted because, you know, it was there every Pride, it was there every year, and you just kind of went in with friends. Oh, it's like a tourism thing, you know, you were there. But, you know, moving here to South Florida 14 years ago and then going back for the 50th anniversary, I think it was so wonderful just to walk in and be like, wow, this is like, it's populated so well over the years that people just flock to it, you know, and it's so wonderful to have them come to South Florida and just learn a little bit about the history, you know, just the progression in the last 55 years that it's been running. You know, I'm sure it's gone through many things, and then you hear about memorials that are being given there and stuff. So it's really great information.
Well, Vaughn and I actually were in New York not too long ago. And Vaughn, you actually had the opportunity to go to Stonewall. What was that like?
It was very interesting because I never had been there before. So when I went there, I had to touch the bricks. Because, you know, they hold the memory.
It's part of history.
It's part of history, you know. And then to go in that room and went to both floors, upstairs and downstairs, and then they had shows going on. But what I enjoyed was to see the youth. That was they were there, and it was like enjoying themselves.
Well, the Stonewall Inn to folks in New York is like their manor.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
It's not like for us, it's this historical place, but for them, it's their Saturday night spot that they go to, before going to Pieces and taking a picture in front of Gay Street. It's what we do.
Yeah.
We
did the same thing.
So those queer young kids down here need to get that story.
And
need to go to this thing with GFLGCC, because they're the ones that need to know, why do I go to Stonewall Pride every year? To be cute. No, you go to Stonewall Pride every year because of this.
And to get the connection.
Because of the protest.
It's connecting Stonewall with our Stonewall.
100%. Yeah. I love this.
Yeah, I know that we had, like International Men of Leather, IML, they do fireside chats, which is very interesting because they talk about the history, the leather community. And I've always found when people do fireside chat, it's that intimate discussion.
Yeah.
And it's lesson, it's history. It's, and like you said, we've talked about this, is like a lot of people here don't understand the history with that and what it truly represents. And if we don't talk about it, it's going to die.
Yes, 100%. And big shout out going out to Jason Nunez, who is the chair of the GFLGCC. And what he has done in the short period of time that he is chair, president, I don't want to mess up your title, but you're the big dude up there, all right? And, his mesh with different organizations trying to bring people in, Jenn's Tea Shop is an incredible little place right there next to the well, right, that I adore, owned by a lesbian, trying to get in to the Wilton, scene and trying to get the boys to go over and have tea. And he sees that. So he's like, okay, let's incorporate this place into this. I love what he's trying to do. So thank you very much, Jason, for all you do. And Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you all at the Stonewall Inn at Stonewall Pride, GFLGCC business event on Thursday, June 12th. And that is the big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.